Polly from underatexassky.com, and I am going to be showing you a wreath today. We're going to make a Thanksgiving type wreath, a fall type wreath. I'm going to do the poof and the ruffle method combined. It's been a while since my last video. I know that it had been since probably April. We've had a lot of changes since my last video. My youngest daughter was pregnant with our first grandchild, and Emmeline Beth is now in the world as of May. And we also, I don't know if you can kind of tell from the shot here, we moved to a new house. We're one of the, we did just the opposite of what most people do when they get to be our age and have grown kids who've moved out of their homes. Instead of getting smaller, we actually got much bigger. We built a house that's about twice the size of our other house because we realized that since our children live out of state, we just didn't have room for everybody when they all two of them came home to visit. But now that we've got the grandbaby and everything too, so now we have a house that's got room for everybody, including a nursery for our little Emmeline, and it has been absolutely fantastic. I have a new craft room too. I know I would very much like to do a video on what we've done with our craft room. Our house came with a bonus room. A lot of people use it as a game room, and my husband was gracious enough to work with me to turn it into a craft room. And so that's what I've done. I'm working from a desk that I actually purchased that has these nice shelves. It just worked out great for storage. And like I said, so at some point, I'd love to take you through, do a very quick video, show you some of the things that I've done in the craft room as far as storage and things like that. But it's fall and everybody is excited about doing fall wreaths, so I'd like to get right down to that if we can. If you haven't seen some of my other videos, I do want to talk a little bit about, very quickly, your supplies, some things that you should have. If you're going to be doing mesh wreaths or grapevine wreaths, there are just some things that you've got to have to be able to be successful doing it and not get frustrated. A mat to protect your table. If you're working from your kitchen table, a lot of these just roll out. I've got a smaller mat on top of a bigger mat that measures. It's really for quilting. Of course, I don't quilt, but it's perfect for measuring. It's got a ruler on it and everything. It's pretty wonderful. You need this. You need a set of wire cutters. Just simple. These are just out of one of my husband's toolkits. A rotary cutter. A lot of the mesh that we use when we want to cut it, it is so much easier to put a straight edge down and just roll. It is, trust me on this. Someone had asked me the other day what I use. This one happens to be an Olfa, O-L-F-A rotary cutter. 45 millimeter. I think I bought it at Joann's with a 50% off coupon. They're expensive without a coupon, but you really need to have that. A good pair of scissors. Don't just buy a cheap pair. You're going to be cutting endless amounts of ribbon, so you need good scissors. I have a ruler because when I'm doing my mesh wreaths, I measure every single poof. I like for it to be accurate, and I don't like to eyeball it. Of course, a hot glue gun. One thing I did not get out are zip ties. So many of the elements that we put on the wreaths are zip tied on, and I've got this size and I've got another box with thicker, longer ones depending on how much ground you have to cover. Very important to have zip ties. Another thing too is floral wire. I just buy it like this where you can just string out as much as you need. This is a great way to attach stuff to your wreath forms. We are using a wreath. This is a 15-inch wreath, and when I first started buying them, to me that was really confusing because I thought, I don't want a wreath that's only 15 inches. I want a big wreath. Well, these make a 24-inch wreath, and I think really honestly, if you were to stretch your twist ties out, then from tip to tip, it's about 24 inches. So when you're purchasing, your wreath forms, a 15-inch wreath form should make a 24-inch wreath. Today we are going to be using a Poly Deco Mesh. I've really started using this more and more. I've started the wreath already. I've got other videos out there. There should be a subscribe button right over here over my shoulder that you should be able to click on. To my cameraman, I'll add that button later. He was looking for the button, but I'll add it later, and you'll be able to see how to start it. But I did get to where I'm to the inner ring of the wreath. I'm on my last mesh, and we can zoom in right here. You can see I started here, so I just had clipped that. I'll tuck that in, and I'll zip tie it down where it doesn't get in the way. So I'm on my last poof for the outer ring. So I'm going to go ahead and stretch that out. And when I'm doing my wreaths on these poofs, I do them 15 inches, which means from, I have my ruler, you know, like I said, you can do it ever how you want to. If you're good at eyeballing it, that's great. I started at 0, I come up to 15, which I know you can't really see that, but that's okay. You know what I'm talking about. And I'm coming to the first twist that I put my first poof in. I'm going to untwist it. And I know that it's difficult because you can't see what I'm doing, but you understand I'm untwisting it and I'm putting this down. And I'll hold it up and show you in just a second. Inside this twist. I'm not sticking it on top of the twist that I already made because it's going to cause me to be almost out of room. This Poly Burlap is thicker than a regular deco mesh. Now that is another thing I've had some questions about. Some people have made their wreaths and they've been really disappointed because you can see through them. And here you can too because I don't have my second layer in. That's just going to happen with a plain mesh without a metallic running through it. I'm trying to think. I didn't really plan for this, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to disappear. Just look at my wreath. I'm going to grab a couple of samples of mesh so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay. All right. This is a plain deco mesh. It is super thin. It is, I mean, you can just see straight through it. And even if you gather this up, I mean, you're going to have to, you can still see straight through it. I can see the camera all the way through this. Whereas if you buy a deluxe or premium, and I'm talking about not at your local craft store, ordering it from a supplier online, you can see it's even harder for me to see through just like it is. And then when you gather it up, I can barely see the camera through it. So it's just a difference in your quality. Now these, great if you start out with a wreath like this and you want to use this for an embellishment. Fantastic. It's just going to add to the depth of your wreath. But as far as making an entire wreath out of that, I would probably think twice. That's just me, but I would probably think twice. Now, I have finished the outer ring of this wreath. That's 15-inch poofs and every single twist. Now I'm going to show you what I do when I come to the inside. A lot of people do it differently. Some people start on the inside and work their way out. Whatever you want to do, there's not a right or wrong way. It's just a preference. Now, and I'll hold this up where you can see what I'm doing. I'm taking the tail end. This is where I just finished. And I'm going to pull it to the middle, to the closest tie. And I'm going to pull it tight. And I'm going to twist it in. I'm going to show you how I'm doing this in just a sec. I just think it's good to see how, that's, you know, a question that I had. How do I go from the outer ring to the inner ring? Some people do a poof, but to me that gives you an extra poof that you're not going to have someplace else. Again, there's no right or wrong way, and you can make it any way you'd like for it to be. But now you can see how I went from here straight down tight, and I tied it into there. Now I'm going to start my next poof. And I'm going to take it, and it's tricky. I mean, it really is. It can get a little frustrating, I know, but you kind of just gather, which is what I'm doing here. Again, I take my ruler, I measure out 15 inches, and I'm going to show you a couple of ties doing it, and I'm not going to bog you down. showing you everything. Then I kind of poof it out. I do kind of pull the poofs because I want to be sure that I don't have it. When you're gathering it together, it's easy to get it uneven. So I'm going to pull the poof a little bit and make sure that it's looking pretty good, and it is. Now I am getting to my last twist, and I'm going to be putting this into the first twist that I started. So I'm going to untwist that. If I can find it. And then I'm going to put this inside and give it a good tight twist because it's a lot of mesh in there. And then when you get to the end, I don't know if you can see. So here's my tail. Sometimes people will take this tail and they'll do stuff with it. We're not going to in this case. We're going to just cut it off. But I'm going to give myself a little bit of length so I can tuck it into the wreath itself. And again, good scissors. You see you'll have a little tiny bit of the mesh left. It's not really enough to do much with. I have a really hard time throwing anything away. I keep everything. I don't know that you'll ever need that for anything, but just in case you did, you'll have it. Excuse me a second while I take a drink. Now I've got this long thing here, so I'm going to stick it in between. You can't, well, you see the wreath form is there. And I'm just going to stick this inside. And you can see here in the back how I've pulled it through. And this is a good time to show you the zip ties I dropped. Luckily the box stayed closed. I'm going to grab a zip tie. It's basically, I have all colors. I don't get too worried about matching whatever I've got going under here. And I know you can't see what I'm doing, but it's okay. I'm just wrapping this around. I just like for things to be clean. If you're making things for yourself, you don't necessarily have to be so worried about, you know, everything being neat and clean, but I sell the majority of my wreaths, and so I like for everything to be as clean and secure, and you just want it to feel like it's quality. And honestly, even if you're making it for yourself, make it good quality. You deserve good quality. So go ahead, and you can see here's my zip tie right here. Do you zoom in on that, cameraman? And I'm just going to take my wire cutters and I'm going to trim off that excess. And then it's a little pointed, you know, a little sharp, so I'm just going to push it down to where it's out of the way. And then here you can see where we are so far. And you can start working with your poofs because, you know, a lot of them are still kind of tucked into each other. And you'll do this, if you're like me, you're going to do it a bajillion times. I work these and work these. I make sure you can't see the wreath form behind it. Someone did ask me about that the other day. Like I said, if you can see the wreath form behind it, my suggestion is just add ribbon. Just add as many ribbons as you can into those twists. Fill it in as much as you can, and it'll start to disappear. So you can see this is already cute and full and, you know, looking good. But now we want to start with our layers of ribbons. I have been doing several wreaths lately where I have combined the poof and the ruffle. I've got a video that shows you how to do a complete ruffle technique. The one thing though that is bothersome about the ruffle, now this was a roll of burlap mesh. It's not a poly, it's a burlap type mesh, and so it's pretty stringy. I thought that I might use this, because it is a nice fall color to add here, to add ruffles to this wreath. So I've got the poofs, and then the ruffle is where you take your roll of mesh and then you lay it out, and I cut mine into 12-inch strips. This is 10-inch mesh. It's a roll of 10-inch cut into 12-inch strips. That's how you get your ruffles. Then you just lay it down and you gather, ooh, there went some of my embellishments. You gather it in the middle. I'm going to show you after I get it all gathered up. You just make a little butterfly basically out of it. And then you're going to see what happens when you do that, especially with this. Do you see how stringy? I mean, it gets really stringy, and that's really hard for me to deal with. It bothers me quite a bit. Now, when you use the metallic mesh, it does not do it nearly as badly, almost not at all. But I wanted this wreath to be a little bit more rustic. I didn't want it to be sparkly and jazzy and everything like so much of what I do is, because I love that kind of stuff. But I wanted this to be a little bit more rustic. So I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to work this in. And you can see here, and what I'm going to end up doing is I will start trimming those edges where the fraying is. I have gotten to where I'm putting like drops of glue in there, holding it together, just because it just kind of drives me nuts. Now, a lot of people, when you're working with the burlap, they want that fraying. They want it to be super rustic, and which is fine. You know, there's no problem with that at all. I'm going to go ahead and put these in every single twist, and I'm opening these twists back up when I put these in there because I want to make room for other things. So you can see here, I've taken this, and I'll show you another one. There are 18 twists in one of these wreaths. So I had to do 18 of these 12-inch cuts out of this 10-inch burlap. And see, it's very loosely gathered up. It's not precise. It doesn't have to be because we are doing rustic. But see, I've opened that twist up, and I'm going to stick another one of these ruffles in there. And you can see so far, it makes a big difference. It's really pretty. And that's, I mean, really what we're going for. We want it to be pretty. And I'm wanting this to be super fall. And so I'm going to continue to do these all the way around in every twist. I'm going to open every one of them. Okay, so here we have, wow, that is really cute. I'm liking it so much so far. And now you start to add, I mean, I'm telling you, you add more and more and more. It just gets more beautiful with each thing that you put on there. Now, I already pre-cut these ribbons. I absolutely love this ribbon. It is called sackcloth. It's a gingham sackcloth. And I actually order this from craftoutlet.com. I get no money, no kickback, nothing from them. I'm not associated with craftoutlet.com at all. I just think they've got amazing prices on their ribbon and everything. I really, really like what they have and their prices, and they ship for free, and it gets here very quickly. I'm just going to show you, I'm going to cut one ribbon, and as I've said in my other tutorials, you'll see me showing you how to do this. I do 12-inch ribbons, so I'm just going to cut this 12 inches. There, that's on 30, 20, 19, 18 will be 12. And I always like to show you the little, whatever we call it, the notch that we cut into the ends. Just fold your ribbon over in half, and then half that. And then on the folded side at a diagonal, you're going to cut to the top. And be sure and start on the folded side going that way, because if you do it the other way, it's going to have a point instead of having this nice little finished edge. Just these little things like this that make it look so cool. And actually, am I going to go with this next? Here. I also have this really fantastic green plaid ribbon that I'm liking a whole lot. And I was thinking, another thing that a lot of people do in their wreaths is they'll use their ribbon without cutting it. They're going to put it in, and then they're going to kind of weave it in and around. I'm going to give that a try. I never feel super confident doing that because, I don't know, I just always feel like it just doesn't look even or whatever, but we're going to give it a shot because I think it's pretty. And I love plaid, and plaid is very fall. And this plaid happens to be absolutely beautiful. It matches everything really well, so I just put it into a twist. And what a lot of people will do too, let's see, let's come in to maybe right here, and they'll do a bow. And that's where they just kind of do a loop, and then they do another loop. Let's see if we can make this work. I'm not super good at bows, I will tell you that. But if we're going to keep this continuing, we come in to maybe, well, I'm going to have something in the middle, so I don't want anything necessarily to be right there. So we'll come in right here, and I'm going to just twist this bow. I just did a loop and then another loop, and I'm just going to stick this in between these twists. I am not a bow expert at all. When I make my bows for my wreaths, I use a bow dabra. I don't claim to be super bow efficient or whatever. Then we're going to come in. I'm going to go ahead, and I'm not going to do a bow in this one. I'm just going to stick this in here and then twist, and then maybe this next one I'll do a bow. And on this, I'm not being precise, and you can, let me see if I can show you how I did it. I just took it, I just looped, took it, and then I'm just going to loop it back up there and get its place and just pinch it. And that's going to look very bow-like. And I want to be sure I'm not twisted here. And let's come in here. We'll put it right here. And then, so you see, we've got that. It's not looking bad. And isn't that what you want when you make something and look at it and say, oh, that doesn't look bad? We're going to do not a bow here, because I don't want to do one on every single loop. Come in here. Just be sure and give yourself enough slack. And then I'm going to come. I'm really loving how this looks. I'm going to come around to here. I'm going to do one here. Let's see. And then I'm going to do that. How did I do it? Oh, the loop. There's no size to this, y'all, honestly. I'm just telling you, if I can do this, anybody can do this. I'm going to give myself a little bit more slack, though, because I don't want this to be pulling down. So I'm going to give myself a little bit more slack. And then I'm going to go ahead and put it in here. I'm going to twist it. Let's see. What I like about this ribbon too is that there's not a right side and a wrong side, so that kind of helps. And then I'm back basically to where I started. So we're going to just go ahead and open up, twist that in, and I'm going to cut it off. Ah, clearly they join these two ribbons together. Cut it off. I'm going to go ahead and do our little end. And, okay. Now this layer is done too. As you can see, that's looking pretty good, I think. I like it. Okay, now we've got just these straight ribbons. We're going to come in and start just filling these in. I've got enough for every twist. Whether or not I'm going to use them on every twist, I don't know. There's not anything thing that says you have to, and I'm certainly gonna, I mean, I use these ribbons in so many wreaths because I love that fabric so much that I, you know, you'll get use out of it even if you don't use every one that you cut. Okay, I think we're doing good. And then I've got lots of fall embellishments. I also have a sheer ribbon. I think we're going to skip the sheer ribbon right now. And you know, if you had wanted to make this super duper cutesy, you know, I could have used this ribbon that's a brighter green. It goes with this green, but everything else I used toned it all down. That gave us a nice look. Here, I think the happy fall in the middle is going to look pretty good. All of this stuff actually I just bought. I think I bought it at Michael's. They had all their picks 50% off or something like that. And then you have to just start deciding where do you want your embellishments to fall. And then you have to work them into your open spaces. Just be sure that you know, you have some evenness about that. I've got some really cute things. And then now I'm just putting these in, just sticking them in, kind of getting an idea of what I would want if these would work like this. Really, it is just getting a feel for where you want the things to be. And remember, like I said, you know, we're going to have a sign. Now, these picks, you can do it a couple of ways to attach them. Actually, be sure you have all of your little stickers off of there. Nobody wants to see that. Once you decide where you're going to put it, and I can feel it underneath where it is. I like that. And I'm going to show you just a second. Go ahead and get a twist tie. And I can do this from feel, but I'm going to show you. See how it's touching the metal ring? So I'm going to work the zip tie around the stem and the work wreath where I can get it attached. This is just really easier. I like doing this more than just hot gluing. Now I do hot glue my fair share of things, but I always worry. We live in Texas and we're under a Texas sky, under texassky.com. And boy, it gets hot here. Even in the fall, it's hot. And then if you're doing a summer wreath, certainly it's hot, and I always worry about the hot glue letting go. So you can see here, I've put this embellishment in. It is in there. I'm going to turn it around. I don't know, sir, if you can zoom in on that to see where I have actually zip tied it to the wreath form itself. I'm going to take my wire cutters and I'm going to attempt to clip that off. That's why you need good wire cutters. And then you can kind of manipulate it. But that's not going anywhere. That's in there. You know, it's secure. So I'm going to go ahead and attach these other things. Okay, now comes the hardest part to me of anything that I do, and that is attaching the big thing. This is the most frustrating thing in the world to me. It is like the bane of my existence. Because you want it to be secure. Let's see with this, do we want this just to be floating? Do you want to see this rope? Oh, I guess really we can make it to where, and then the problem getting it centered, I'm telling you, I know it's frustrating. It's frustrating for me, but you just work at it and work at it and work at it until you get it the way you want it. And it works out okay most of the time. Let's see. It might be good, but I don't want it right over this thing or that thing right over it. So I'm going to scoot it over. I'm going to find the wreath through all of the stuff, and you want it a clean shot so you can use your zip tie. And you'll get it on there, then you'll do all of your fluffing and everything after. I'm going to use a little bit thicker zip tie, and I'm actually I'm not zipping it tight at this point because I want to be able to adjust it. There's nothing worse than getting it on there and then you're like, oh, okay, that's not in the middle. I'm going to have to take that off and do it again, which happens all the time. Okay. So I'm thinking that we're good. I've just created a lot of strings on this particular ruffle. I'm going to trim that off. And you can see I'm not happy with that because I can see that rope. So I'm going to just work my poofs around. Oh, perfect. And then trim your strings. And just give them a pull. And I think you've got a pretty cute wreath here. Now probably what will happen is I'll get it on a door, I'll take pictures of it, and then I'll see all the things that I think are missing, then I'll go in and add it. You can always add to, you certainly can always take away from. But I've got lots of fruit, or I guess gourds and things like that that can go on here too. But I think this is really awesome. It's a poly burlap mesh. I've got the sackcloth ribbon. I've got the burlap ruffles that are just the 10-inch mesh cut into 12-inch strips gathered in the middle. I've got my zip ties. I've got my little this and that on here. I think you should give this a try. It is really easy. Give yourself a break. Don't worry if it doesn't come out exactly perfect. If for some reason you can see through your wreath, add more stuff. If I could see through this, I would be putting all kinds of stuff in there to make sure I can't see through it. Just adjust, readjust, use zip ties, use twist ties, whatever you need to do to manipulate your wreath. Because remember, this is the important part. This part, nobody sees this part. It's on your door. This is what's important. So get your stuff on there and look in the way that you want it to look, the best way that you can, and it's going to be awesome. Give this a try, and be sure and go to my website, underatexassky.com. There wasn't an earthquake. It was the mean man just bumping the tripod there. I really enjoy doing this. I'm sorry I've been gone so long. If you have any questions, please ask questions. I'm so happy to answer them for you. And don't think that you cannot do it because it looks difficult. It only looks difficult. Once you try it, you'll see how easy it is. You can do this. Give it a try. Have a great day, and I will see you next time.